Hello everyone, I am Suzanne Spreadbury, Dean of Academic Programs at the Harvard Extension School, and I'm thrilled to be here to celebrate the Division of Continuing Education's 50th anniversary. Now, the Harvard Extension School, established in 1910, is well over 100 years old. Indeed, this month we are celebrating our 115th birthday. However, 50 years ago, Harvard Extension School, along with the Harvard Summer School, and the newly formed Institute of Learning in Retirement became the Division of Continuing Education, which now also includes our professional and executive development programs. These 4 units are DCE, and together we support the educational goals of high school students, early, mid, and advanced career professionals, as well as seniors in retirement. All of us are laser focused on access, innovation, and impact for learners of diverse ages and life stages. To celebrate with you, I've asked Chris Berlin to join me today in conversation about religion and artificial intelligence. Chris is the denominational counselor to Buddhist students and instructor in ministry and pastoral counseling at the Harvard Divinity School. Chris is also a beloved Harvard Extension School religion instructor who teaches courses on compassion science and mindfulness and resilience to outstanding student reviews each semester. This spring, Chris is teaching a new course, Mindfulness, AI, and Ethics, Cultivating the Heart of the Algorithm. As a national leader in adult education committed to teaching cutting-edge topics, Harvard Extension School is offering 25 courses on AI this year across multiple disciplines, including computer science, management, government, philosophy, biology, and sustainability. But I thought all of us would benefit from learning more about Chris's unique take on AI from a humanistic, mindfulness, and Buddhist perspective. You have rave reviews, student evaluations.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to embarrass you just a little bit,
All
and
right.
I'm going to share
Bring
one
it on.
from this fall course. But you know, this was not an unusual response. They were all like this, but I have to say, here is one. Chris Berlin is truly exemplary, embodying wisdom, compassion, and profound knowledge. He is one of my favorite professors of all time. He created a deeply supportive and inspiring learning environment. His insightful lectures, thoughtful choice of course materials, and compassionate engagement with students provided a foundation for profound intellectual and personal growth.
Wow.
I mean, what teacher doesn't want to hear that?
Wow.
That's amazing.
Well, and it's also what people are bringing in to the class. I think that sometimes they choose these subjects because there's something stirring inside of the student, something that they're wanting to discover within themselves. For me, it's really, there are holistic ways to help actualize that with our students. And when you combine that with like a breathing practice,
Yes.
or you make it experiential, you make it personal for our students. Learning isn't just, it's not just an intellectual exercise in our classes, but really it's making it personal. It's putting it to the test, as the Buddha said. Don't take my word for it. See what's true for you. Put it to the test. If it's not, fine. Maybe something else is.
Right.
Those wonderful, wonderful, generous compliments really speak to, I think, what students are bringing in, what they're looking for.
Yes.
It's a collaboration, really.
Yeah, our students are here because they really want to make a change. right?
Exactly.
You know, and
Yeah.
they're doing it through rigorous academic study and your courses, which are such a great interdisciplinary experience with psychology and religion and philosophy, gives an opportunity to kind of question this mind-body divide, right? It's all kind of one. And
Exactly.
your courses really
Yeah.
put them together that way. Can you share a little bit about our students and how you find it rewarding to teach them?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really value about the student body at the Extension School is that they make up such an amazing diversity And they're diverse in terms of age, but also background. We have people from all over the world who
Yes.
come into the hybrid courses, the online classes. It's just a really rich array of students. I think when I ask our students to design, for example, a final project and make it relevant to what your life looks like or what your aspirations are, or if you're doing a master's thesis, how can we help you take this course material and integrate it into your understanding of what your research is? The openness of our students to do that, to really use themselves as instruments of learning,
Yes.
personally, is really, really wonderful. And you know, our classes are bigger here than they are at HDS. I think it fulfills a whole nother dimension of teaching at Harvard overall at the Extension School. It is a real treasure.
It's a magical place, right?
It
You
is.
have students who are here because they want to learn, and instructors who are here because they want to teach their passion, and that combination is
Yeah.
really exciting.
Yeah.
And you know, how often do you get to be in a room with people, you know, 18, 25, 35, 45, 80, all
Exactly.
together talking about the same topic and exchanging ideas? I mean,
Right.
you know, it feels like kind of a unique experience. Well, that's great. So you have this new course that you're teaching this spring. It's called Mindfulness, AI, and Ethics, Cultivating the Heart of the Algorithm. And I remember when I was reviewing the course proposals back in, it's almost a year ago, back in February of last year, and I saw this course come across my desk. I was like, I'm approving that right now. That looks amazing. And of course, I know you and how wonderful you are with our students. So, but tell us the thinking behind this new class.
Yeah. It's interesting to reflect on kind of the journey that led up to the subject material of the course. Has almost been a culmination of the other courses at the Extension School that I've been teaching. So we've been doing these explorations almost as a continuum in a way. And what occurred to me, as well as my wonderful TA, Tajay Bongsa, who I've had now for several years, what a blessing he has been. And we were having a conversation one night talking about the courses. He's a TA, he's been a TA in all three. And talking about how technology and AI actually fits into that equation. How do we understand intelligence? How do we understand consciousness from the standpoint of technology? Because we just don't know where consciousness comes from. It's still what we call a black box phenomena. And yet, there is this word intelligence that can mean a great many things. So, great. So we've done the work of exploring with our students, what does enlightenment mean? What does flourishing mean? But then what does it mean that this is all happening in a world more and more impacted and influenced by technologies, by machine learning, even to the point of emotional learning on the part of AI platforms. So that was a question that just wouldn't go away. And so I asked him. He actually has done some training at MIT. He's been really interested in this. I have as well. And so we thought, well, what would a course look like now that takes all of this stuff that we've been doing around human beings, and what are kind of some of the areas that maybe are really important to look at for the future, for how things are evolving through our technologies, and what are some of the concerns around that? What is it that could be lost if we don't understand what consciousness is? How can we possibly say whether or not it's possible for AI to replicate consciousness as opposed to just data and thoughts and the capacity to aggregate binary coding into ever more sophisticated systems, as well as the concerns around things like what's called the alignment problem.
People feel that it's kind of the central problem, right? The alignment problem.
Exactly.
How would you define that for?
So there are two terms. One is singularity, and the other is alignment. And if we start with singularity, and we start with this notion that at some point that technology, what we call artificial intelligence, will actually surpass human intelligence, and that will be irreversible, and that it will also be uncontrollable to some extent, and therefore what arises for humanity is uncertain. It's not a doomsday thing, but we just don't know. Obviously, there are great potentials here. And there are a lot of questions and concerns that need to be addressed. So that's what we call the singularity, the AI singularity. How that then fits into the alignment problem, or what is a potential alignment problem. It's not a problem yet, but it's sort of getting ahead of a potential alignment problem, in which, and how we would define that, is that the interests of humanity in developing these technologies somehow are lost to the AI as it progresses to learn more than humans know. That human intelligence becomes far surpassed by artificial intelligence in how it aggregates information, how it applies it, and also the speed with which it does this. And that's another part of that. Things are accelerating so fast with these technologies. And in essence, part of the alignment problem could be that we're being outpaced, or we will be outpaced by this information. And so what kinds of building blocks, safeguards, boundaries, parameters, ethics, and insights we can build into this as well now really matter for what comes next.
Will AI have human values, or will it develop their own values
Right.
that are different? than
That's the
our
alignment problem,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Like, how do we imbue the AI with our human values when, of course, human values are defined differently all
Right.
over the world, and between you and me, we would have different, but are there essential human values that we want the AI to have?
Right.
And if not, could it just develop its own values that would be in contrast to what we want and what we need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this course,
Fascinating.
it is, and what I find interesting about this course is, so it is a religion course.
Right.
And what we're going to be drawing on are insights, wisdom, certainly from mindfulness, from especially the teachings on mindfulness of breathing that impact not just a sense of well-being, that actually lead to clarity and insight about suffering, about what we call in Buddhism skillful means. I recently, with a friend, we put in some prompts to ChatGPT to tell us about this is speaking to ChatGPT, tell us about how you would integrate Buddhist ethics and AI development into the evolution of AI. And it came back with some really good answers, as you can imagine it would. And added into that the figure of Amoghasiddhi. So in Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism, there is this sort of mythological Buddha called Amoghasiddhi. He is the Buddha of all accomplishing wisdom, basically representing aspects of ourselves that are skillful, imbued with insight, with clarity, and proper motivation, usually the motivation of being of benefit and compassion. And the response was really deep. In fact, that's going to be one of the readings in our class, is what ChatGPT has to say about this mythological Buddhist interpretation of wisdom and skillful means that is directly applicable to how we approach AI development, algorithm design, all of those things, machine learning. The interesting thing there is that the most important part of that is wisdom. And this is from AI, that without wisdom, the wisdom of this Buddha figure, which reflects our own capacity to have insight, clarity, and wisdom, and compassion, without that, of course, then we have many, many problems. And so
And
taking
would you define
ChatGPT.
wisdom as different than intellect?
In Buddhism, it's not the
Yes.
same.
Right.
It's not the same. Intellect is important,
Yeah.
but there are 3 forms of wisdom in Buddhism that all of which are important. One, simply learning.
Yes.
So you hear a teaching, you read a book, and you have intellectual knowledge. And great, you know some theories, you have some good information, some good knowledge perhaps. Maybe you could even do a lecture on it. And that's important. It's important to learn those things. But the second form of wisdom is that which is derived from reflection, from contemplation. And that's where the information that you have becomes personal. You kind of run it through your experience.
Yes.
So it's something that is deeper. It's a little more impactful for the individual. And then the third form of wisdom is called meditative wisdom. That which you get through calming the mind, through settling within the body in an easeful, relaxed way, so that whatever impulses are coming to kind of facilitate or cling to things, basically you can ride those waves, but they don't determine your action. And in that space of relaxation arises just a very natural clarity and insight into the nature of your own suffering, your own disquietude, as well as the benefits of quiescence, and who in me is aware of all of this.
Right.
So it comes
Who
down
is
to
that
that,
person?
who am I really? And so that third form of wisdom really matters. So the question with AI is, are we just basically fixating on the first form of wisdom? Is wisdom keeping up with the advances in technology as they are accelerating ever more quickly,
What a
exponentially quickly?
Beautiful question, right?
Yeah, and so that's what we're going to look at in the course, to contemplate also ethics. People are having these conversations, but I think the thing that makes this course different, because you can take a course in AI and AI and ethics and learn the jargon and maybe how it works more deep in a more granular way, is coming back to mindfulness and how can we evolve humanity in a way that's holistic, that allows all of us to flourish, and that includes the environment. It includes our attitudes, the things that we aspire to collectively that aren't just driven by market forces,
Right.
but really are driven with kind of a more evolving sense of clarity.
Yeah. You know, I want to ask you about mindfulness because I think, and how it applies to AI, but first of all, I think the perception about what that word means, like it's not just about being present, right, and being present in the moment, right? It's more, how would you define mindfulness?
So yeah, I mean, it is about being present, but how are we being present?
Right.
How are we relating to whatever present is arising? So that's the key. The Buddha said that suffering for humans is akin to being shot with 2 arrows. And the first arrow is unavoidable in so far that we are born into these fragile bodies that, we get sick. I just had this horrible cold, and I know you had one before that. So, this is inevitable. That kind of suffering. We age, ultimately we're all going to die. Our mortality is a form of suffering. And suffering that is born of just the fact of all things being impermanent and how unsettling that is. We can't do anything about that. That's just life. But the second arrow of suffering is the mental anguish that comes with the first arrow. So it's how we relate to those things. What does that first arrow basically trigger in us? Our fears, anger, the need for permanence, all of those things. So that second arrow is something we can do something about. And so that's where mindfulness comes in to say, okay, let's just learn first some very simple techniques to be present differently. And that begins by encountering our breath. Mindfulness helps with being thoughtful.
Yeah.
It helps with seeing more clearly what we're doing. It helps slow things down. when AI is accelerating exponentially every year. And it will continue to do this. What I believe I.J. Good called the intelligence explosion back in, I believe, 65. Alan Turing, who was one of the ones who really wrote about artificial intelligence surpassing human intelligence. So he's one of the key people who did a lot of theorizing and writing about this.
AI gives us a real opportunity to ask some fascinating questions about what it is to be human.
Yeah.
You know, things that we took for granted about creativity, about empathy, about, you know, intellect, you know, like these human qualities that we just kind of went along and that we had. You know, in comparison, now we have this thing that we're comparing ourselves to, this artificial intelligence. It's making us question, well, what is human creativity? What is empathy? And, you know, those are wonderful questions to be asking and to be investigating. And that's what your course asks students to do, right?
Yeah. In a way, it's a great opportunity, AI is a great opportunity for us to get to know ourselves better.
Right, yes.
And in so doing, hopefully be more mindful of designing algorithms and systems in which we don't run into an alignment problem.
Yes, yes.
Even if the singularity is where we're headed. That, you know, it doesn't determine sort of a doomsday kind of thing. And I agree with you. I think people, you know, there are different camps. Some people really will say, I don't like AI, I don't want to hear anything about it. Other people are over the moon about what's possible. And then there's the rest of us that are cautiously optimistic, but we also know that whatever you design will be accessible to everyone on the planet. This notion of if you build it, they will come, that was from Field of Dreams, the Kevin Costner movie many years ago. Here, you know, it has, I think it's more sort of an unknown. If you build it, they will all come. And that includes people maybe who maybe don't have the best intentions for other human beings. And we have to also know that whatever we create will be available to everyone for all kinds of purposes. And so, you know, that's the lesson we keep having to learn around all kinds of technologies, forms of power, nuclear power, and so on. So, yeah, we really need to be mindful, and that takes knowing who we are and who we are not.
Right. Yeah, and I think that one of the things about your course is that it's not doomsday, and it's not all like everything's going to be wonderful, right? It really is that middle path, the Buddhist middle path.
Well said. You know, I hadn't thought about bringing that in. I love it.
Yes, you know, where it's like we're not going to pretend that there aren't concerns and they're not ethical issues, really difficult ones.
Yeah.
But we're not going to also, you know, not talk about all the amazing, you know, benefits, certainly in medical research and diagnosis.
There's a lot more holistic information coming to us through AI. And this happened when I put in the parameters, AI, tell me about ethics for AI. And what came back was very, very good. And it was very comprehensive. And it even had a reflection paragraph. What do I think about this?
Oh my goodness.
It was quite encouraging, actually.
Second stage of wisdom.
Right. Second form of wisdom.
If it gets to the third.
Reflection.
So what do you hope students will walk away from the course with?
First of all, some tools. Certainly mindfulness tools that can help them kind of consider how they approach AI, and not from a standpoint of reactivity or impulsivity, but with a sense of clarity, with a sense of being settled and intentional about motivations, their motivations. Motivation's a big part of it as well. So, do we really know what's motivating us when we're creating something with AI? And that's what our students will be doing in the class. They'll be designing their own projects fully with AI, fully without it, and then the middle path, as you put it. Seeing what do we learn from using it as opposed to building our own capacity. Because I think that's one of the concerns that I have, is we begin trading our capacities,
Yes.
basically giving capacity over to something that we don't know how it works. We sacrifice that perhaps for ease, for speed, and maybe we develop other capacities in that sense. But if we hand everything over to AI, I do feel as if there is some diminishing in our capacities that can happen. And certainly with creativity and so on, there's something to learning the basics of how to draw a picture and basically fuse with the object, whether it's a bowl of fruit or a profile or a landscape, that I'm embodying it as I draw it.
So much of writing is thinking.
Yeah.
You know, we write to think our arguments and our thoughts, and you know, so if we hand over our writing to somebody, to AI, then what happens to our thinking? You know, it's a question that I ponder.
Something else is doing our thinking for us. Are we losing a capacity to think for ourselves?
Right.
And that is a real concern.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the nuances of evidence and argumentation, you know, and not, because right now when you read like an essay that's written by AI, it's a very standard kind of way of you know, intro paragraph, 2 supporting paragraphs, and conclusions, right? And you know, if that's the only way that we think about, you know, conversation or intellectual dialogue, you know, that's really diminishing, right? Yeah.
And if we even take it a step further, superintelligence.
Yes.
Which will get to know you, your personality, your voice, your style of writing, so that, as Alan Turing said, it will be indistinguishable. What AI does is indistinguishable from a human being. You won't be able to tell the difference because it'll be, Suzanne created this, she wrote this because it has her voice, it has her inflections, her way of writing, her metaphors, her style. It'll get to know you very, very well. So, yeah, maybe that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
It's personalized, but it's not you.
Right.
It's partly you.
But who am I?
And we come back to that question, and that's where we begin.
I wish you well with the new course this term, and I hope we have it in our catalog for many years to come. And I want to thank all of you for listening in today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, and I want you to be on the lookout for more chats, more panel discussion, more events, all throughout the year 2025 as we celebrate Division of Continuing Education's 50th anniversary.